Hello, dear friends. It's about 1 in the morning on the 10th of July. Tomorrow is the Vilnius Conference, where everything just keeps getting more interesting. So, dear friends in the West, you are about a hair's trigger away from World War. A lot of you are a hair's trigger away from being mobilized to go die against us. So your time is basically already run off. So if you haven't been doing anything to stop your governments from killing you, first of all, I mean, they've already bankrupted you. They've already stolen everything you own. Now just take whatever you have left, in this case, your life and your future. So if you haven't done anything to bother with it, well, it's pretty much almost too late. For the 2/3 of NATO that wants Ukraine in NATO now, just understand, instantly you're at war with Russia. By your own rules. So let me put down a little bit of reality. First, for you Poles. Poland is going to be destroyed, and we're not going to have any mercy for you. Not this time. First time around was the Brotherhood of Slavs. Boy, was that a stupid Pan-Slavism. Was that ever stupid? Dostoevsky was right. Our biggest enemies, our worst enemies, are going to be all the little Slavic nations we help free. Free from the Austrians, free from the Germans, free from the Turks, free from whomever. And all except for Serbia have turned against us, have shown themselves to be what they are. Dostoevsky is absolutely right. That was 140 years ago, and nothing has changed. He was right about liberals too, and they haven't changed any. Just looking for a foreign boot to lick. World War II, we had the stupid concept of the Brotherhood of Nations, taking Pan-Slavism enlarged to the world. We don't have those misconceptions anymore. We're looking historically at the people that have been our enemies for the last 1,000 years, who first invaded with their German allies Russia in 1012. Back then, Kiev was the main city, or capital city, of a confederacy of princes. Well, actually, at that point it wasn't a confederacy of princes, because it was Vladimir Krasnosonce. He was who baptized Russia. He was on the throne. So the Poles invaded under Boleslav Hrabry with their German allies. They grabbed Kiev, they grabbed territory around there, but they couldn't hold it. But they just started off 1,000 years of invasions from the West. And every chance Poland could lead it, it led it. Every chance it could participate, it participated. Let's not forget in 1612 when the Polish army, relief army to the Polish army that was besieged inside Moscow was wiped out. And then the Moscow garrison, Polish garrison, surrendered. They had been cannibalizing the population inside of Moscow, had defiled all the churches, turning them into stables and shithouses. We don't forget that either. You Poles like to forget that. Because, you're the harbingers of civilization. You are. Harbingers of Western civilization, all the worst of it. You're the excellent representatives of it. But we haven't forgotten. We put a lot of it aside, hoping that, things will get better. But it's obvious, with the Poles, nothing will ever get better. So Poland is going to be destroyed, especially since you're the ones pushing war hardest. The Americans will be laughing. Another bunch of Slavic meat to be tossed at the Russian war machine, just like the Ukrainian idiots. Fine. If there's only going to be 1 or 2 Slavic tribes left at the end of this, we're going to be one of those. You aren't. And your 300,000, 350,000 troops that you're planning, that's going to be the meat before your betters ever have to get into the war. Now comes for the Germans. If we have to take Berlin for the 4th time in 300 years, and you Germans have never taken Moscow or St. Petersburg, you crowds haven't gotten anywhere close, even though you might have gotten to see the spires of the Kremlin, a few of them, before being exterminated that night. No Germans ever taken Moscow. We've taken Berlin 3 times in less than 300 years. We'll take it a 4th time. But we sure hell's hell not going to ever give it back to you. And Potsdam, just so you understand, west of Berlin, that's a Russian city Catherine the Great built for Russian veterans that were too injured to be able to come back to Russia, so they could live in a Russian town. You don't believe it? Look it up. We will take Berlin. We will break up Germany. The German project is over. You're breathing the last days of any unified Germany ever again. Germany was unified in 1883 to 1945. And the big mistake was to allow it to ever be reunified again in 1991. That mistake will never be made again. Independent Bavaria, West Prussia joins East Prussia as part of Russia. It'll be West Russia. Independent Saxony and the industrial capacity in Germany will be wiped out. You can go back to being agrarians. And the northern French territories are going to be wiped clean too. We're not going to let you repeat this historical crap again. And it looks like probably maybe reforging the Austro-Hungarian Empire while we're at it. Which is not a bad idea. As a counterweight to all your crazy-ass Western crap. So we're going to reforge the maps in Europe fully. And you're either going to be on the right side of history like the Hungarians are, and the Serbs want to be, even though Vucic is doing everything not to be, or you've been on the wrong side of history. And the wrong side of history means you go to the ash heap. And more likely your population is going to get replaced by Arabs, Africans, whomever else. Hell, you're doing it anyways to yourselves. Most of the Europeans are too spineless, stupid, and inbred to understand that they're being replaced at a very high rate. The smarter ones will be immigrating to Russia. But not too many of those, because there aren't too many smarter ones left. Too much inbreeding. Too much hubris. Oh well. You know, the interesting thing is, I need to write an article on this. Join the long list of articles of them written or half written. We didn't want to reforge the Russian Empire. Well, I always did. Putin didn't. But we are. All thanks to you Westerners. Because if you just left us alone, we just kept on going the way we were going. But you can't leave anything alone. Because you're greedy. You're obnoxious. You're arrogant. And hubris is the only thing you know. We're just white apes to you, even when we're stumping your teeth in and kicking you in the balls and destroying your, Wunderwaffen Leopard tanks are burning. Yeah, they burn real well. And the Bradleys get wiped out, but I knew that because I was an XO in the Bradley company. I know what pieces of shit they are. And Abrams will burn just the same. In fact, it'll be hunting season. The first Abrams that come in there are dead on arrival. Every Russian is going to be gunning to be the first one to kill an Abrams. If not the first one, how about the second or the third? Top 10. And there are monetary prizes for killing leopards and huge monetary prizes for killing Abrams. Bradley's not even that much of a challenge. Abrams will be a bit harder, obviously. Better armor than leopards, but it'll still burn. And the crew inside will burn. And your time is up. Vilnius is coming up. I'm going to see if Zelensky sets off anything like a dirty bomb to try to trigger that idiot Graham's little project in the Senate. As soon as any nuclear material falls on any NATO member from any explosion, because it's obviously going to have to be a Russian explosion. Or at least the media will say that. That's obvious. That's the truth, God's truth anyways, to most Westerners, or anything the media tells them. So that goes off. And then Article 5. So we have a good old war. I mean, Graham, that inbred homo, was too stupid to understand that Washington will get wiped out with a nuclear weapon if this goes on. And he's going to burn up in hell Well, he'll be burning in hell sooner or later anyways for all the blood he's helped spill. Not that he's ever worn a uniform. But he sure as hell helped spill it and made a lot of money off of it. He just doesn't realize that the stupid shit he says, it does come back to bite. Sooner or later, it'll come back and hit him. And Washington, and all the other idiots that are pushing war. Because they think they can, for some reason, they can isolate themselves. Europe will get destroyed, and then they'll get to rebuild Europe, and they won't get touched. You're idiots if you think that. And if you think a nuclear weapon is fun and games, a 20 megaton nuclear weapon will exterminate pretty much all life inside of New York City and Manhattan and everything else in that kind of sized area. That's one. Take 100. We have over 10,000. Take 100 and figure out what's going to happen. There ain't going to be an East Coast United States left. And then we've got those nukes under the water. 50 to 100 megaton nukes. You understand the size of the tidal wave that's going to be coming in to wash out all the burning, melting radioactive sludge? Just in case anything survives. And then you get the 50, 60 meter high wave. That's if we don't hit Yellowstone, San Andreas Fault, the Mississippi Fault. There's lots of fault lines in North America. I mean, you really want to push World War III? Because on the conventional level, you'll lose. Maybe just flat out. Look at reality. Uralvagonzavod, which is a large tank manufacturing facility in central Ural Mountains, produces more tanks. Just this one plant produces more modern T-90 Proriv battle tanks than all of NATO produces. We produce more missiles for our anti-air system than the whole world, and not just a little more, twice as much. Yeah, we produce our own chips too, as I mentioned so many times before. We feed ourselves, we clothe ourselves. Well, okay, we still got imports from China, but we're more and more locally produced clothing lines are appearing. Pretty much anything the West had, we can replace. Auto parts are a bit of a problem for Western cars, but Western cars are being phased out as they age out. For local production, for Chinese production, for Iranian production. Yeah, everybody makes cars. They're not anything special. That's what you got. And by the way, there's another thing. I mean, for Europeans, I understand. Westerns in general. Today you're screwing your neighbor, tomorrow you're his friend, and the next day after you're putting a knife in his back. I mean, that's normal for you guys. I understand that. But it's not normal for us. We actually believe in honor. We actually believe in justice. Actually, справедливость you can't even translate into English. It's just like 3, 4, 5 words. Social justice, justice, doing the right thing, morality. And it's all wrapped up together in this one little word. So, I mean, we're categorically different people. We believe in God. You spit on God. Or you pervert religion into such a mess that it's Sodom and Gomorrah by their description, are conservative. But, that's you. That's not us. We're family values. Not a family of 12 individuals of 15 different genders doing a clusterfuck. We believe in a wife and a husband and children. Because we believe in Christ. Yes, the vast majority of Russians are Orthodox Christians. Over 60 or over 70%. True, not all are churchgoers, and by far not all. But over 20% go on a regular basis, at least once a month. And the West, not so much. Unless it's a transgender gay Jesus thing like entity. I mean, for God's sakes, the Anglican Church is looking at getting rid of our Father. This is going to be our it something, because our Father may offend people who've had bad relationship with their father, their biological father. I mean, the corruption in the West is beyond. It's Satan. It's Satan every day, all the time, 24 hours a day. And any of you Christians, by the way, living in these satanic entities, living quietly, getting by, you're not Christian. Sorry to bust your bubble. You're not Christian. You're not chosen. You live with this kind of evil and you ignore it. You don't protest it. You don't talk truth to power. You're not Christians. There you go. A little bit of truth. I'm not saying I'm some kind of saint. Not even close. But all of you who are getting along and just looking the other way, you're not Christian. And now we come to the cluster munitions. Sorry, something got in the eye. Now we come to those cluster munitions. That M48, that M485 round, 86 round. 80 bomblets, depending on which model, submunition, 74 to 80 bomblets. Realistic dud rate on the new ones is around 15 to 20%. On the ones, the 30-plus-year-old ones that are going to go to Ukraine is around 40%. But hell with the bomb rates. Well, first of all, they're only effective if you've got mass troops in the open. They don't work worth a crap against fortifications. But you know what they look really well against? Civilians. Oh, yeah. And I'm not talking about as layabout mines. I'm talking about as high explosives that are shrapnel plus a directed jet plus shrapnel, dual purpose. Ukrainians are using 155 millimeter rounds and everything else NATO has given them against civilian targets every single day, constantly. Those HIMARS are manned by American contractors, maybe UK and Canadians too, but Americans. There are Ukrainians aiming those or firing those. Nobody trusts them. We would have already had one for the full rack of ordnance, because they would have sold it. So war crimes galore for the West. And sooner than later, they're going to lob one of those American munitions into a market for a high kill. But thankfully, the high moral ground of Washington, D.C. and London and the rest of the Western scum will just not be able to see it. Or when they do see it, they'll just not understand whose munitions those were, even though there's English writing on them that says made in the U.S. or NATO or Belgium or France or some other crap. Because that's what it means to have the high moral ground. To do a God's work. Well, a demigod. A wannabe God. Satan. And that's all Washington does. A bunch of sociopaths doing Satan's work. And all of you supporting those, yeah, you're gonna have to answer to the big man sooner or later. And if you push for nuclear war, it'll be a lot sooner than later. On how you stood and where you stood and what you did. Food for thought. Go with God.